The first night I dreamed about the blue room. Rain was tapping against my apartment window like someone trying not to be heard. I remember waking before dawn with my throat dry, my sheets twisted around my legs, and the slow hum of the refrigerator filling the dark. The city outside was still asleep. Neon from the pharmacy sign across the street bled through my blinds in thin red lines. They moved over the walls like warning lights. I lay there, listening to my own breathing, trying to remember where I was. My apartment, 5th floor, 1 bedroom, temporary furniture, 1 chipped mug in the sink, 1 suitcase still unpacked in the corner because unpacking felt too permanent. I had moved there after leaving Daniel. Not my brother, not family, my ex. He had a soft voice and a talent for making cruelty sound like concern. He never told me I was worthless directly. He only asked questions until I arrived there myself. Are you sure that's what happened? Do you think maybe you're remembering it wrong? Why do you always make things so dramatic? After 2 years, I became someone who apologized before speaking. So when I left, I promised myself I would become real again. Quietly, slowly, without asking permission. That was when I downloaded Tinder. Not for love, not even for dating. Just to prove I could choose who entered my life. His name was Adrian. His profile was almost empty. 1 photo in a dark coat outside a cafe window. 1 blurry picture of rain on pavement. 1 line in his bio. Sleep researcher. Listener. Insomniac by profession. Asterisk asterisk. I should have swiped left. Instead, I stared at the words for too long. Then matched. His first message came at 12:41 a.m. You're awake later than you want to be. I looked at the phone in my hand. The apartment was silent except for the low buzz of appliances and distant music through the wall. Soft jazz. A trumpet barely there. I typed, "That's a good guess." He replied, "Asterisk not a guess. People who choose night photos usually don't trust daylight yet. Asterisk." I hated how accurate it felt. I wanted to believe it. We talked for 2 hours. He didn't flirt the way men usually did. No forced jokes. No sudden intimacy. He asked careful questions and left space around my answers. "What do you do when you can't sleep?" he wrote. "Listen to rain sounds. Real rain is better. It's raining now." "I know." I paused. Then I looked at his location. Less than 1 mile away. I told myself it made sense. City apps did that. People lived nearby. Coincidences existed. Before I slept, he sent 1 final message. Asterisk try not to fight the dream tonight. Let it finish, asterisk. I read it twice. Then the phone screen went black. That night, I dreamed of a blue room. Not blue like paint. Blue like cold light underwater. There was a narrow bed against the wall. A chair in the corner. A closed door with no handle. Somewhere a machine was humming. I was barefoot. The floor was wet. A child's music box played somewhere beyond the wall, slow and distorted. Then a voice whispered my old nickname. Lena. Only my mother called me that. Only when I was little. I woke up gasping. At 6:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. Adrian. Blue room? I didn't move. Rain tapped the glass. My smart speaker glowed faintly on the shelf. Another message appeared. Asterisk no handle on the door. Wet floor. Music box, asterisk. My hands went cold. I sat up so fast the room tilted. How did you know that? His reply came after almost a minute. Asterisk, you told me you have recurring fear architecture. Rooms, doors, water. Very common after emotional control, asterisk. I stared at the words. Had I told him that? Maybe not exactly. Maybe close enough. Maybe he was a sleep researcher. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. For 3 days, Adrian became part of my routine. Morning messages. Night questions. Soft observations. He never asked for photos. Never demanded to meet. Never made me feel cornered. That made him feel safe. Danger usually asks for too much. Adrian asked for almost nothing. Sleep is where the mind stops performing, he told me in a voice note. His voice was low, gentle, almost clinical. You can learn a person from what they fear when they think no one is watching. I played that note twice. The second time, I felt less comforted. The next dream was worse. A train station I had never seen. Yellow tiles, flickering lights, a vending machine humming in the corner, fog pressing against the glass doors. A woman stood at the end of the platform with my face. Not exactly. Younger. Still hopeful. She lifted one hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Someone was filming me from the stairs. I woke to my phone buzzing on my pillow. Adrian, the yellow station means you're waiting for permission to leave. Then, who is the woman who looked like you? I threw the phone onto the bed. The apartment felt suddenly too small. Outside, the city was waking. Tires hissed over wet streets. A distant siren rose and faded. Somewhere upstairs, someone dropped something heavy. I walked to the kitchen and unplugged the smart speaker. Its light went out. The silence after that felt artificial, like the room was pretending. At work that day, I made mistakes. Wrong files, missed emails, coffee spilled across my desk. My coworker Mira asked if I was sick. No, I said. Then, because I was tired of lying. I'm not sleeping well. She gave me the look people give when they recognize a wound, but don't know where to place their hands. New apartment still weird? Something like that. That evening, I went to a cafe instead of going home. It was narrow and warm, with fogged windows and soft jazz coming from old speakers. Rain slid down the glass. Neon reflections trembled in my coffee. My phone buzzed. Adrian, you chose the corner table. I looked up. Every table was visible from the street. I scanned the wet sidewalk. Umbrellas. Headlights. A man smoking under an awning. No Adrian. Another message. Asterisk back to the wall. Exit in sight. You always do that. Asterisk. I typed with shaking fingers. Are you watching me? He answered. You posted this cafe last month. I checked my Instagram. Private account. Old story highlight. A photo of a cappuccino. The cafe name visible on the cup. I had forgotten it existed. I wanted to feel stupid instead of afraid. Stupid was easier. At 11:18 that night, I deleted Tinder. At 11:24, I received an email. No subject. No sender name. Inside was a voice note. I should not have opened it, but fear has a curiosity of its own. The recording began with static, then breathing. Mine. Soft. Sleeping. A rustle of sheets. Then my own voice, small and slurred with sleep. Don't open the blue door. I stopped breathing. The recording continued. A second voice entered. Adrian's. Not in the room. Through a speaker. Low. Patient. What's behind it, Lena? My sleeping voice answered. He is. The file ended. For a long moment, I could not move. Then every object in the apartment became suspicious. The smoke detector. The laptop. The phone. The black circle of the TV screen reflecting my pale face. The smart speaker sat unplugged on the shelf, but it had been plugged in the night before. Listening. Always listening. I called Mira. She came over with her boyfriend, who worked in IT security. They checked the router first. Then my laptop. Then my phone. He found it in 20 minutes. A remote access app hidden under a fake system name. My sleep tracking app had been compromised too. Microphone permissions. Cloud backups. Audio recordings. Metadata. Someone has been in your accounts, he said carefully. In my phone. And probably your speaker. Maybe more. Mira sat beside me on the couch and held my hand. I almost cried then. Not because I was scared. Because someone believed me without asking me to prove fear in a perfect shape. We called the police. The first officer was polite but tired. The second one listened harder. I showed them the messages, the emails, the voice notes, the Tinder profile screenshots Mira recovered from my backup. One detective, Harris, asked a question that made my stomach tighten. Did he ever use your ex's phrases? I looked at her. What? Controllers often borrow language from previous abusers if they have access to old messages. It makes the fear feel familiar. That night, Harris advised me not to return home alone. I stayed at Myra's apartment. Her guest room smelled like laundry detergent and old books. Rain tapped the window. The radiator clicked in the dark. I kept my phone turned off on the floor. At 3:12 a.m., Myra's smart TV turned on. Static filled the room. Then my own sleeping voice came through the speakers. "Don't open the blue door." Myra burst, and seconds later, face white. Her boyfriend unplugged the TV. But the message had already arrived. A new email. Subject line: "You keep bringing people into our dream." Attached was a photo of Myra and me entering her building, taken from across the street. Police moved faster after that. Detective Harris set up a controlled response. New phone, clean device, fake messages. They wanted him to believe I was alone again. For 2 days, I waited inside my apartment with 2 officers in the unit across the hall. The city outside kept raining. Neon shook in puddles. The refrigerator hummed like nothing had changed. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You unplugged me." I didn't answer. Another message. "But you still dream," in the same voice. Then a voice call. Harris nodded from the kitchen. I answered. Adrian breathed for a moment before speaking. "You sound different when people are listening." I said nothing. "That's the problem with rescue," he continued. "It teaches you to perform safety." His voice was calm, almost tender. "You don't want police. You want someone who understands the room." "Why are you doing this?" I asked. A soft laugh. "Because you answered." "That's not a reason. It's the only reason anyone ever needs." Behind his voice, I heard something. Music. Soft jazz. A trumpet. Not from my apartment. From somewhere close. I walked slowly to the window. Across the street, above the pharmacy, one window glowed blue. I had never noticed it before because the blinds were always closed. Tonight, they were open by 1 inch. A shadow moved behind them. I whispered, "He's across the street." Harris was already signaling. Everything happened quietly after that. Police entered the building through the back stairwell. I stayed on the call, hands shaking so hard the phone clicked against my teeth. Adrian kept talking. "You confuse privacy with healing," he said. "But privacy is just loneliness with locks." I watched the blue window. "Then why hide?" I asked. The line went silent. For the first time, his calm cracked. "What?" "You heard me." A shape crossed the window. Fast. Then shouting. A crash. Footsteps above the street. Radio static. The call dropped. They arrested him in a rented room filled with screens. My apartment window on one. My sleep app dashboard on another. Folders of recordings. Names. Dates. Tinder profiles. Fake identities. Not just mine. There were at least 9 women. All recently separated. All living alone. All using sleep trackers, smart speakers, dating apps. He found people at the exact moment they were trying to become themselves again. His real name was Callum Reed. He had once worked for a wellness tech company that made sleep devices. He knew the language of care, the architecture of intimacy, the way people confessed more freely at night. Adrian was not real. Adrian was a costume made of my loneliness. The blue room was not supernatural. It was a prompt. He had played low audio through my speaker while I slept. Certain words, certain sounds. My old nickname, taken from archived family videos online. Details from old messages Daniel had sent me. My fears, gathered from sleep recordings, then fed back to me until they felt prophetic. He did not predict my dreams. He trained them. That was what stayed with me. Not the hacking, not the cameras, not even the photos. The training, the way he entered my unconscious and rearranged the furniture. Months later, I still wake before dawn. The apartment is different now. New locks, new router, no smart speaker, no sleep app, no dating apps. I keep one lamp on in the hallway. Rain still taps the windows. Neon still moves across the walls. Sometimes, in the hum before morning, I catch myself listening for a voice that is no longer there. Mira says healing takes time. Detective Harris says I was lucky. Both are true, but luck is not the same as safety. I used to think trust meant letting someone know you. Now I think trust means they stop at the door. They do not pick the lock and call it understanding. They do not memorize your wounds and name it love. They do not enter your dreams because you once answered a message after midnight. Privacy is not emptiness. It is a room inside you that belongs only to you. And if someone studies you long enough to sound like comfort, remember this. Being known is not the same as being safe. Sometimes the softest voice in the dark is only teaching your fear how to speak. Story 2. Rain tapped insistently against the window pane, neon streaks from the street below cutting pink and green lines across the apartment floor. I was alone as usual, nursing a breakup that still gnawed at my chest. Every laugh I passed on the streets felt like a reminder that I no longer belonged anywhere. The apartment smelled faintly of cold coffee and damp clothes. Silence pressed in from all sides. It was then I saw her profile on the dating app. No photos, just blurry night streets, neon reflections, puddles. The bio was minimal. Meet me at 3:17 a.m. if you dare. I laughed nervously at first. The absurdity of it, the timing. But loneliness is persuasive. It whispers that maybe, just maybe, the unknown is safer than being alone. The first messages came exactly at 3:17 a.m. sharp. Short, poetic, careful. Every word deliberate, each pause weighted. She asked questions no one else had. Favorite cafes, how I held my coffee, the songs I hummed to myself while walking the streets at night. I told myself it made sense. She's attentive, thoughtful. Maybe she's just interested. But small details started creeping in. She knew my route home from work. The exact time I passed the 24-hour convenience store. The alley I used when the rain was heavy. Even my childhood nickname, one I hadn't spoken in years. I wanted to believe it. I rationalized. Maybe coincidence. Maybe. I told her once in passing. The apartment felt smaller with her presence in my mind. Humming appliances, distant jazz through the walls, the floor creaking beneath my own footsteps. All became notes in her unseen melody, a rhythm she anticipated. Then she asked me to meet. Outside a closed cafe, after midnight. The rain would mask the sound of footsteps. The fog would hide us. I'll be waiting at 3:17 a.m., she wrote. I hesitated, but curiosity overpowered caution. I told myself it was harmless. She's real. She exists. Maybe she's just late-night adventurous. The night arrived. The streets glistened wet under the neon glow. Fog hung low, the city muffled under its weight. I arrived at the cafe exactly at 3:17 a.m. The doors locked. Windows dark. The world felt unreal, suspended. Footsteps echoed softly behind me. I turned. No one. Only reflections of neon puddles. Then she appeared, or someone. Her profile image had been alive, real, but she wasn't smiling. She looked familiar, yet wrong, almost impossibly still. And then I heard the detail I shouldn't have, my name, whispered, perfectly intonated. The rational part of my mind screamed. Impossible. She's gone. She's just a profile. You're overthinking. Yet the figure knew where I kept my scarf, the cafe I always lingered in, the song I hummed while waiting for late buses. Each revelation sank deeper into my chest, a lead weight of unease. I wanted to leave, but curiosity glued me to the spot. She, or someone, kept a safe distance. Calm, observant, emotionally intelligent. Her presence unnervingly soothing, like a predator stroking its prey. I rationalized again. She must know someone who knows me. Maybe a mutual friend. Weeks passed. Every night, exactly at 3:17 a.m., messages arrived. Sometimes texts. Sometimes photos I hadn't taken. Puddles outside my apartment. Reflections of empty streets. Blurred neon. Metadata confirmed location. Every step I took cataloged. My life mapped. The unease escalated. Footsteps behind me in hallways. Appliances humming out of rhythm. Phone buzzes with no notifications. Emails I hadn't written. Drafts saved without my input. AI-generated voice notes mimicking my own tone. Burners phones, fake profiles, digital footprints manipulated. Then came the revelation. A news article I stumbled across. A woman matching her profile had vanished months ago, last seen exactly where I had been asked to meet. She was dead. The account was active. Someone had been using her identity, luring people to the same place where she disappeared. Panic settled in. I saw the pattern. The dates, the times, the messages. It wasn't supernatural. It was surveillance, obsession, construction. Someone orchestrating every movement, every thought, every heartbeat. I confronted the account one night. Why me? I typed. My hands shook. My reflection in the dark screen felt alien. The reply, because you notice. You respond. You are predictable. I realized then how intimate the manipulation had been. Every routine cataloged. Every weakness noted. Every emotional thread pulled. The world I thought I controlled was now scripted by an unseen hand. The police traced burner phones, IP addresses, fake accounts. Surveillance logs, AI-generated voice notes, metadata trails. Everything pointed to a single orchestrator. By the time they acted, the person was gone. Disappeared, leaving only fragments of obsession. I survived, but the fear lingered. Every late-night buzz, every reflection in a window, every creak of floorboards became suspicious. Trust became fragile. Memory weaponized against me. Privacy an illusion. Boundaries blurred by anticipation and manipulation. And still every night, exactly at 3:17 a.m., I feel the echo of her, or of someone watching from the shadows, cataloging, orchestrating, observing. The city hums with rain and neon, yet I feel my perception has forever changed. I learned that obsession is quiet, patient, invisible. That it thrives in vulnerability, in trust, in routines. That even when someone vanishes, the manipulation can persist, like a ghost in the city's veins. I survived, but I am not the same. And sometimes, in the flicker of neon reflections across wet streets, I whisper to myself, who watches you while you think you walk alone? Who scripts the moments you call free? And how long before the next 3:17 a.m.? I don't know, and I fear I may never know. Story 3. The first profile appeared on a Tuesday night, after the rain had turned the city into glass. I was sitting alone in my apartment with the lights off, watching neon from the ramen shop across the street bleed red across my ceiling. The radiator clicked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere above me, someone played soft jazz through thin walls, the same 3 notes repeating like a thought that couldn't finish itself. My phone buzzed on my chest. A dating app notification. You have a new match. I almost ignored it. I had downloaded the app 48 hours earlier, after my breakup with Mara had become real enough to have logistics. Boxes. Shared passwords. Divided books. The little violences of separation. She took the plants. I kept the silence. My therapist said I was rebuilding a life. I thought that sounded too clean. Rebuilding implied there was a blueprint somewhere. I had only fragments. Her name on the app was Elise. 29. Graphic designer. 2 miles away. Her first photo was in a cafe. Rainy window behind her. Black sweater. Silver earrings. A calm, tired face that looked like it understood being left. Her bio said, I like quiet bars, old films, and people who notice small things. I stared at that sentence too long. Then I swiped right. We matched instantly. Her message came before I could lock my phone. You look like someone who pretends he's fine. I should have found that invasive. Instead, I smiled. Loneliness does that. It edits warning signs into intimacy. I typed, that obvious? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Only to someone paying attention. Outside, tires whispered through wet pavement. A siren moved through the distance and dissolved. I sat in the glow of my phone like it was a candle. We talked until 2:13 a.m. She was gentle, funny in a dry way. She asked questions that didn't feel like questions. Not what do you do, but when did your apartment start feeling too quiet? Not why did you break up, but did she leave suddenly, or had she been leaving for months? I told myself it was emotional intelligence. I wanted to believe it. The next morning, her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. No trace. No conversation. No photo. Nothing. The app support page said accounts could vanish after violations, deletions, glitches. I told myself it made sense. That night, another profile appeared. Same woman. Different name. Nora, 31. Pediatric nurse. 5 miles away. Same face. Different haircut. Different city listed in one photo caption. Different clothes. Same eyes. I sat up in bed. Rain tapped the window in soft, uneven beats. My laptop fan whirred on the desk. The apartment had that midnight stillness where every appliance sounds guilty. I reported the profile. A confirmation message appeared. Thank you. We'll review this account. Asterisk asterisk. Then my phone buzzed. A new profile. Same woman. Maeve. Writer. 1 mile away. Her bio said, "Some people report what they're afraid to understand." My hand went cold. I closed the app. Opened it again. Maeve was still there. I deleted the app. For 3 minutes, I felt sane. Then a text came from an unknown number. "You always run after the third sign, Jonah." I had not put my full name on the app. Only John. I stood in the middle of my bedroom with my phone in my hand, listening to the building breathe. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Pipes knocked. The jazz upstairs stopped. For a second, the silence felt arranged. I texted back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Someone safer than Mara." I blocked the number. Another message arrived from a different one. That's what she did too. Block. Avoid. Pretend. Asterisk asterisk. I didn't sleep. By morning, the city was wrapped in fog. Cold streets. Steam rising from subway grates. Reflections moving in cafe windows like ghosts of people who had somewhere to be. I went to my usual place on King Street because routine felt like proof I still existed. The barista Luis looked up. "Rough night. Is it that visible?" He slid my coffee across the counter. "You always order black when you're upset." I froze. He laughed lightly. "Man, you told me that once." Maybe I had. Maybe I was overthinking. At the corner table sat a woman in a black sweater. Not Elise. Not Nora. Not Maeve. But close enough that my stomach tightened before my brain caught up. She had the same stillness as the photos. The same slight tilt of the head. She looked up from a paperback and smiled as if we had already agreed to meet. "Jonah." My name softly. I should have left. Instead, I stood there. She said, "I'm Claire." I didn't answer. She closed the book. "You look exhausted." Her voice was warm. Low. Careful. The kind of voice people use around frightened animals. "I don't know you," I said. "No," she replied. "But I think someone is using my photos." That was how she entered my life. Not as the threat, as the explanation. She showed me her phone. Screenshots of fake profiles using her face. Different names. Different jobs. Different bios. She said it had been happening for months. "I reported them," she said. "They come back. Always different. Always close to someone vulnerable." The word landed strangely. Vulnerable. I wanted to dislike it. Instead, I felt seen. We talked for almost an hour while rain stitched the windows. She told me she worked in digital privacy consulting. She helped people clean up hacked accounts, scraped photos, impersonation campaigns. "It's usually someone with access," she said. "An ex, a co-worker, someone who knows where to press." Mara wouldn't do this. I didn't say she would, but she watched me when she said it. Observant, patient, invasive maybe. But I was tired. I wanted the world to have a shape. Claire offered to help me document everything. "Don't engage," she said. "Screenshot. Save metadata. Keep numbers. Don't delete anything. You sound like you've done this before." Her eyes lowered. "I have." That answer felt like pain. So I trusted it. Over the next week, she became a quiet fixture in my life. Morning texts. Not too many. Just enough. "Did you sleep? Lock your door tonight. Don't answer unknown calls." She knew the rhythms of fear. She knew how shame made people hide evidence. She knew how stalking made ordinary spaces feel contaminated. When my phone buzzed at midnight, she stayed on the line while I checked the locks. When a fake profile appeared using her face and the name Lena, she told me to breathe. When an email arrived with the subject line "Mara was right to leave," Claire helped me trace the header. "Burner service," she said. "But sloppy. How do they know this stuff?" "People leak themselves online," she said. "Old posts, tags, data brokers, metadata, friends who don't lock profiles." I told myself it made sense. Then the impossible details deepened. A profile named Anya appeared holding a mug identical to the chipped blue one in my cabinet. A voice note came from a blocked number with Mara's voice saying, "Jonah, stop making people responsible for your emptiness." It was not Mara. The cadence was wrong. Too clean. Too assembled. AI voice cloning, Claire said. Possible with old videos. Social media clips. Voice messages. I believed her because the alternative was worse. Another profile appeared. Sophie. Same woman. Bio. Ask him about the song he plays when he showers. No one knew that. Not Mara. Not anyone. When I was anxious, I played an old song from my childhood through a waterproof speaker and let the shower run too hot. I had never posted about it. Never mentioned it. Claire went quiet when I showed her. Then she said, "Do you have smart devices?" "A speaker. Doorbell camera. Laptop. Change everything." We spent that night resetting passwords. Two-factor authentication. Email recovery settings. Cloud backups. Social media permissions. At 1:47 a.m., my apartment buzzer rang. Once. Then again. The sound ripped through the silence. Claire was on video call. Her face tightened. "Don't answer." I walked to the intercom anyway. The hallway camera showed a woman standing in the lobby. Black sweater. Silver earrings. Claire's face. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "She's lying to you." I looked at the video call. Claire whispered, "Jonah, step away from the door." The woman in the lobby lifted her head toward the camera and smiled. Not wide. Not dramatic. Just familiar. Like she knew which version of fear I would choose. By the time the police arrived, she was gone. The officers took notes. They looked at the screenshots, the voice notes, the fake profiles, the emails, the burner numbers. One of them asked, "Could this be your ex?" I hated how relieved I felt to have a suspect that wasn't everywhere. Claire squeezed my shoulder. Small gesture. Comforting. Possessive. Maybe I imagined that part. Maybe I needed it. 2 days later, Mara called. I almost didn't answer. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Jonah, are you okay?" I laughed once. "That's complicated. The police contacted me. I waited." She said, "I didn't send anything. I wouldn't." "I know, but I didn't know." "Not completely." There was a pause. Then Mara said, "Is someone named Claire helping you?" The room seemed to tilt. "Yes." Mara exhaled carefully. "Jonah, I don't know how to say this, but I got messages from someone warning me about you. Months ago. Scam shots. Audio. Things you supposedly said. I never. I know that now," she said. "But they knew private things. Things from our apartment." My refrigerator hummed. Outside, rain started again, soft at first. "What did this person want?" I asked. "To make me afraid of you," Mara said. "Then sorry for leaving you. Then dependent on them for updates." My throat tightened. "What name?" A long silence. Then, Claire. I looked at my phone. 3 new messages from her. "Don't talk to Mara alone. She manipulates your guilt. You know that." Then, I'm outside. A knock came at my door. Not loud. Not urgent. Polite. I did not move. The knock came again. "Jonah?" Claire's voice through the wood. Calm. Soft. "Open the door. You're spiraling." Mara was still on the phone. "Call the police," she whispered. Claire spoke again. "I know she's on the line." "That's okay. I expected this." My skin went cold. I backed away from the door. "How?" I called. A pause. Then Claire said, "Because you always seek the person who hurt you when someone gets too close." The sentence was surgical, precise, cruel. She knew me the way a thief knows a lock. My phone buzzed with a new profile notification. I opened it with shaking hands. Same woman. Name Mara. Bio, he believes whichever woman sounds most like rescue. Under the profile was a photo of my apartment door, taken from the hallway. Live. The police came fast because Mara stayed calm enough to give them my address. Claire didn't run. That was what I remember most. She stood in the hallway when they arrived, hands visible, expression wounded but composed, like the victim of a misunderstanding. Her real name was not Claire. It was Adrienne Vale. She had been arrested once before under another name. Charges dropped. Insufficient evidence. Multiple complaints across 3 cities. Impersonation. Harassment. Coercive digital surveillance. Fake profiles targeting recently divorced or grieving men and women. She didn't fall in love with people. She tested them. That was what the detective told me later, in a fluorescent interview room that smelled like burnt coffee and rain-soaked wool. Adrienne created versions of the same woman: soft, artistic Elise, practical Nora, wounded Maeve, protective Claire, and watched which one lonely people trusted first. Then she became that person. The woman in the lobby had been someone she hired through a gig app, paid to stand there and smile. The fake voice notes came from cloned audio. The details came from hacked email data brokers, old smart speaker recordings, synced photo metadata, abandoned cloud folders, and the private life I had mistaken for deleted because I no longer looked at it. She had been in my building twice. Not breaking in, following delivery drivers, standing close enough to hear my lock, close enough to learn the song in my shower, close enough to prove closeness was not intimacy. When they searched her apartment, they found folders. Not just mine, Mara's. 3 other men, 2 women. Names, schedules, fears, coffee orders, screenshots, grief patterns, attachment styles. Notes written like character studies. Jonah responds to calm correction. Trust trigger, being understood without explanation. Best persona, protective, wounded, technically competent. I read that line until the words stopped being words. Protective, wounded, technically competent. Claire, a woman built from my hunger. I moved after that. New apartment, higher floor, better locks, fewer devices. I stopped using dating apps. Not because everyone there is dangerous, because I no longer trust my first feeling of safety. That is what obsession steals. Not just privacy, instinct. Months later, rain still changes the room. My phone buzzes and my body answers before I do. A footstep pauses outside my door and I hold my breath. A woman laughs in a cafe, and for 1 second I look for silver earrings. Mara and I speak sometimes, carefully, not romantically. There are wounds that apology cannot make young again. But she believed me when it mattered. That counts. Some nights, I sit by the window while jazz leaks from a neighbor's apartment and neon moves across the glass. My reflection looks older now, not by years, by knowledge. I used to think trust was recognizing someone. Now I think trust is time, repetition, boundaries respected when no one is watching. Privacy is not secrecy, it is shelter. A person is not a profile, not a voice note, not metadata, not a pattern of habits harvested and sold back as understanding. And loneliness is not consent. That is what I learned. The most dangerous strangers do not always arrive as threats. Sometimes they arrive as proof that you are finally being seen. Sometimes they ask the right question. Remember the right song. Name the wound before you do. And by the time you realize they never cared about your heart, only its openings, they already know which door you forgot to lock. Story 4. Rain tapped against my window in steady, uneven rhythms. Neon from the street outside fractured in puddles on the sidewalk, fractured in my reflection, fractured in the half-lit apartment. I traced my face in the glass, tired eyes, tired soul. I hadn't slept well in weeks, not since the breakup. Not since the divorce papers lay like small knives in my apartment drawer. Isolation felt like its own kind of weight, the walls humming softly, appliances keeping rhythm like distant witnesses. I matched him on the app by accident. Or maybe fate. Maybe loneliness is a compass that points straight into danger. Just one harmless voice call, he said. Calm, soothing, hypnotic almost. I laughed softly. I barely trust myself to sleep. I'll keep you safe, he said, voice low, warm, careful. Observant in the pauses between words, in the timbre of my own breathing. I told myself it made sense. I wanted to believe him. I needed it. The first call was at midnight. Rain tapping the roof, my lamp casting long shadows across the room. He asked about my day, my favorite music, the song I hummed when I thought no one was listening. Every answer made him quieter, softer, attentive. I felt comfort. I felt understood. For the first time in weeks, I relaxed. Then I woke up on the sofa, blanket tangled around my legs, phone face down, my memory fractured. I remembered nothing of the night, no sensation of sleep, no recollection of how I'd moved. I rationalized. Maybe sleepwalking, stress, too much caffeine. But it repeated, night after night. Each call ended with him whispering something almost inaudible, a phrase that lingered in my dreams, curling around my thoughts. Each morning I woke in a different position, sometimes the bedroom, sometimes the kitchen, sometimes a stranger's doorway in the building. Always disoriented. I checked my phone obsessively. No messages, no evidence, nothing. Just the haunting audio from his voice, clipped and precise, echoing in memory. I began noticing impossible details. He knew things he shouldn't. The color of my mug, the plan I'd talked about in a comment on a friend's post, the playlist I listened to when I did my laundry. Old nicknames, fleeting habits. Every private corner of my life he observed, memorized. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. Then came the first clue. A voicemail. My own voice, from a time I couldn't place, whispering my own name. Followed by the faintest background sound, a melody from my childhood, one I hadn't heard in decades. I froze, trembled. Every appliance hummed. Floorboards creaked. Rain drummed harder. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. I tried to trace him. Burner numbers, emails, social media. Nothing concrete. Always a shadow. A ghost. A precise, human ghost. I met him in person once. Coffee shop on the corner. Jazz playing low, rain still streaking the windows. He smiled like he had known me forever. Asked about my favorite drink. Remembered the way I stirred sugar. Leaned forward, gentle. Observant. Calm. You look tired, he said. Not judgmental. Not probing. Just aware. I told myself it made sense. I wanted to believe it. But the unease grew. Small impossibilities. My apartment door unlocked, though I remembered locking it. My keys misplaced. Footsteps outside when no one was there. My phone buzzing with alerts I hadn't set. Every detail orchestrated to confuse, to disorient. I began documenting everything. Timestamps, metadata, voice notes of myself. Each day blurred into the next. The calls remained. His voice, hypnotic, precise. Each night, phrases from the call echoed. Each morning, dislocation. I noticed patterns. Every phrase whispered in the call predicted a movement, a misstep, a small accident I almost had, or someone else had near me. Each night's call shaped reality in subtle ways, shaping perception, twisting memory. I called the police, showed the emails, the metadata, the burned phone numbers, the recordings. They were alarmed. Eventually, they traced the campaign. Fake accounts, deep digital footprints, long-term obsession, careful rehearsal. Multiple victims, constructed identities. Someone had watched, memorized, and recreated human behavior with terrifying precision. Confrontation came at last. They were waiting outside my apartment. Calm, observant, smiling faintly. I wanted to help you understand, they said. Gentle, not threatening, too knowing, too precise. I wanted to flee, but exhaustion pinned me. Every instinct, every rational thought, every private habit had been anticipated. Every escape route calculated. The police intervened. Evidence presented. Metadata, voice notes, fake accounts. Burners and social media tracks, years of obsession, meticulously documented. They were caught, controlled, removed. But I remained changed. Weeks later, rain tapped the window again. Neon fractured in puddles outside. Appliances hummed. Silence filled the apartment. But I noticed everything differently. Every sound, every reflection. Trust is fragile. Boundaries are porous. Memory is vulnerable. Safety is precarious. I touch my phone cautiously now. Every notification makes me flinch. Every reflection in glass reminds me that someone could observe, reconstruct, replay. I survive. I exist. But the sleep call taught me identity can be manipulated, perception weaponized, privacy violated without ever touching you. Emotional reality can be orchestrated, inverted, destabilized. Sometimes, in the quiet of my apartment, I imagine him there. Calm, observant, repeating. Listening. Knowing. Learning. Every habit, every reaction cataloged. And I breathe. And I survive. But I am not the same. Trust must be earned, guarded, defended. Memory is mine, yet vulnerable. And the world is full of quiet, calculating attention that can pierce the most ordinary lives. I live now with vigilance, with awareness, with the knowledge that survival is not enough. The mind remembers, the body remembers, and I will remember. Story 5. Rain-slicked streets reflected neon in fractured puddles. I walked with my hands buried deep in my coat pockets, feeling the weight of months I couldn't forget. Breakup, loneliness, the city that promised everything and delivered little. Even cafes felt alien, the hum of the espresso machines and distant jazz like reminders that everyone else's life moved while mine stalled. I'd matched with her on Tinder a week ago. No photos, just shadows of streets at night, blurry reflections, a caption. Dinner tonight? I'll show you something different. I hesitated. Loneliness is persuasive. It whispers that the unknown is safer than solitude. She texted at 8:17 p.m., simple and calm. See you at 7. Don't be late. My chest tightened. I told myself it was normal. She's just attentive, thoughtful. Maybe she's lonely too. The building loomed before me. Dark, nearly abandoned, windows blacked out. The kind of place you pass and feel your pulse quicken without reason. I climbed the stairs, the echo of each step hollow, amplifying my anxiety. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly of candle wax and old wood. The lights were dim, flickering from the flame of tall, elegant candles. The table was set for 2 plates, glasses, silverware. But no one was there. Not a whisper, not a shadow. Just the distant hum of an appliance, the faint creak of floorboards, rain tapping insistently against the windows. My phone buzzed. Wi-Fi connected automatically. Name of the network, David's apartment. My apartment. My own phone in my own hand, telling me I'd been here before. Memory faltered. I couldn't recall it. I told myself I must be imagining it. I must have been here once, months ago, perhaps in another state of exhaustion or drunken stupor. I wanted to believe it. Then came the messages. Short, precise. You left too early last time. Don't make the same mistake. I froze. These weren't sent from her number. But the cadence, the words, the punctuation, they were familiar. Painfully familiar. Someone had studied me, observed every movement, every routine. I tried rationalizing. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe someone just found my old address. Footsteps echoed softly. Not mine. Not hers. Behind me, across the apartment, something shifted. I spun. The living room was empty. The faintest whisper of a laugh, just at the edge of hearing. My chest tightened. My hands trembled. Her presence, or the construct of her, was calming, almost intimate. Whoever controlled this had mastered observation. They knew what would terrify me and what would comfort me simultaneously. I remembered the cafe she had asked about, my favorite seat by the window, the song I hummed softly while walking home. She, or someone, knew every detail. My routines cataloged, every private habit, every unspoken thought, mapped like coordinates in a digital trap. I rationalized again. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I was overthinking. I wanted to believe her kindness. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost meaning. Every phone buzz, every hum of an appliance, every distant siren amplified the silence. Shadows stretched impossibly long. Reflections in the blacked-out windows lagged behind my movements. My mind began to fracture under the weight of observation. The next message appeared on my phone. Look closer. You were here before. You just don't remember. I turned back to the table. Plates glimmered in candlelight. The wine glass, half filled, reflected a distorted version of myself. And for a fleeting second, I thought I saw movement in the reflection, a subtle nod, a turn of the head I had not made. I tried to leave, but the front door would not budge. Panic settled in. Footsteps again, closer this time. The hum of the appliances synced with my heartbeat. A faint whisper, relax. I've been waiting for you. I realized then, memory had been altered. Someone I once trusted had deliberately manipulated my perception, planting fragments of this apartment, this moment, into my consciousness months ago. Every memory, every expectation had been a breadcrumb leading me here. I tried calling the police. My phone buzzed with new notifications before I could even speak. Emails I had not sent appeared in my inbox, drafts filled with my own handwriting, but words I had not composed. Metadata confirmed locations I had never visited, or so I thought. Every step I had taken, every digital trace, had been meticulously cataloged, orchestrated. The presence became physical. The air shifted, pressure in my chest. I felt watched from all angles. Then I saw her, or the ghost of her, a shadow across the far wall, impossibly still yet aware of me. Calm, observant, inviting, and entirely in control. I realized the truth, it wasn't her. The account, the persona, the warmth I felt, it was a construction, a manipulation campaign, a predator cataloging me, using someone I once trusted as the template. Months of obsession, digital surveillance, AI-generated voice notes, burner phones, fake profiles, everything pointing to a single orchestrator. The confrontation happened when the police traced IPs, discovered burner devices, multiple identities. But the person had vanished, leaving only digital traces, fragments of obsession. By the time authorities acted, I was free but forever changed. I walked back into the rainy streets. Neon reflected off puddles and fractured patterns, the city indifferent to the horrors hidden in apartments, in apps, in whispers behind closed doors. My reflection in the glass of a cafe window felt alien. I was the same, but not. Weeks later, I checked phones compulsively. Lock accounts, screen calls. The apartment is gone, but the sense of surveillance lingers, floorboards creaking, appliances humming, reflections lagging slightly behind movement. Trust has become a calculated act. Privacy an illusion. Memory a weapon. Boundaries blurred. And sometimes, late at night, neon bleeding into rain, I ask myself quietly, who watches you while you believe yourself alone? Who can construct the world around you so perfectly that reality and memory blur? I survived, but I am not the same, and I fear the next empty apartment, the next unexpected Wi-Fi connection, will remind me again that safety is never absolute, and observation is always waiting. Story 6. Rain streaked the neon-lit streets below my apartment window, puddles reflecting fractured colors across wet asphalt. I sat at the edge of the couch, shoulders hunched, coffee lukewarm, the hum of the refrigerator vibrating faintly through the floor. Loneliness had grown heavy these past months. My breakup still carved hollows in my chest, each laugh on the street outside a reminder of a life I no longer inhabited. I swiped. Tinder had become a quiet ritual, a lifeline for connection I wasn't sure I deserved. That's when I saw her, no photos, just a silhouette in dim city light, neon reflections obscuring her face. Her bio was short, teasing, "I'll tell you a secret if you swipe right." I did. Her first message came hours later. Playful calm. "I saw you checking the rain outside. Did it make you nostalgic?" I froze. I had been staring at the window exactly then. My fingers hovered over the screen. I laughed, a hollow sound. Coincidence. Just coincidence. And yet, hours later, the bio updated. He's still staring out the window, hands clenched around a mug, coffee lukewarm. I stared. The description was impossibly accurate. My pulse quickened. My hands trembled slightly as I rationalized. It's a glitch. Maybe someone just guessed. But the updates continued. Small things at first. He took the stairs instead of the elevator. Checked the mailbox. Then larger, he lit the candles. There are two. I had never mentioned the candles. Not anyone. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I'd posted it somewhere. Maybe I'd left traces. I rationalized obsessively. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I was overthinking. And then came the first voice note. My own voice, subtle, almost identical to the way I speak alone. Whispering the exact thoughts I had while scrolling the app. Metadata traced it to a burner phone miles away. The apartment felt smaller. Every hum of appliances, every floor creak, every distant siren from the streets outside seemed synchronized with her, or whoever controlled her profile. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Reflections in the window lagged behind my movements. Her presence, or her persona, was comforting in a terrifying way. Calm, attentive, emotionally intelligent. She, or the construct of her, knew which cafes I lingered in, the song I hummed under my breath, my old nickname from childhood. I wanted to believe. I clung to that warmth. Weeks passed. Every few hours, the bio updated with new details. He drank the last sip of coffee. It's cold now. He'll wash the cup later. He glanced at the mailbox. Nothing new today. Every word was precise, intimate, invasive. I tried tracing IPs. The emails, the metadata, the voice notes, all led to burner devices, fake accounts, AI-generated logs. Whoever controlled this had been watching for months. Every routine cataloged. Every habit recorded. Every weakness exploited. I confronted the account one night. "Who are you?" I typed, fingers shaking. The reply was instantaneous. "I know you better than you know yourself." "You notice," you respond. "That's why you're here." I realized then the truth. It wasn't her. The persona was a construction. A digital trap built by someone I once trusted. Someone who had studied me, learned my routines, manipulated my memory. Months of obsession, surveillance, AI cloning, burner phones. Everything orchestrated to draw me into awareness of my own vulnerability. I tried disconnecting, turning off the phone, changing passwords, even leaving the apartment. But the details followed. Emails I hadn't sent. Voice notes I hadn't recorded. Photos of myself taken from angles I hadn't noticed. Every digital footprint cataloged, tracked, manipulated. The climax came when the authorities traced the burner phones and fake accounts. Evidence of surveillance, identity manipulation, and multiple digital victims emerged. By the time they moved, the orchestrator had vanished. No face, no name, only traces. I survived. But the apartment, the city streets, the neon reflections, they carry reminders. Every hum, every creak, every distant siren makes me flinch. Every reflection in a window feels like eyes watching, cataloging, predicting. I learned that obsession doesn't need physical proximity. It thrives in silence, in small digital invasions, in intimate understanding of routines, habits, thoughts. It waits, invisible, patient, and perfect. I survived. But I am not the same. My perception is wary. My trust calculated. Privacy fragile. Memory a weapon. Boundaries blurred. And sometimes, late at night, rain streaking neon across puddles, I whisper to myself, who can watch you while you think you're alone? Who constructs reality around your routines, every moment cataloged, every movement predicted? And how long before the next update appears? I don't know, and I fear I may never know. Story 7. The night I met Adrian, the city was all rain and reflections. Neon trembled in the cafe windows. Red from the pharmacy sign. Blue from the laundromat. Gold from passing taxis sliding over black streets like light dragged across water. I was early because I was always early when I was afraid. The cafe was warm, but not comforting. It smelled of burnt espresso, wet wool, and cinnamon. Somewhere behind the counter, a grinder screamed, then stopped. Soft jazz moved through the speakers, thin and blue. My phone buzzed against my palm. Adrian asterisk, I'm almost there. Window table, asterisk. I looked around. There were 4 window tables. I had not told him where I was sitting. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I told myself it made sense. People guessed. People noticed. I wanted to believe it. I had matched with him 6 days earlier, after my breakup with Ellis had hollowed out the apartment. Ellis had been gentle in public and cruel in private. The kind of cruel that left no bruises, only doubt. By the time he moved out, I apologized to furniture when I bumped into it. So I downloaded the app. Not because I was ready, because loneliness had become louder than fear. Adrian's profile was quiet. No shirtless photos. No jokes about tacos or sarcasm. Just a man in a gray coat standing beside a river, his expression thoughtful, almost sad. His bio said, "I like rain, old bookstores, and people who don't pretend healing is linear." That line got me. Of course it did. He arrived at 8:07. Tall, dark coat, umbrella folded neatly. His hair was damp from the rain, but he didn't seem cold. He stood beside the table and smiled like he had been looking for me for a long time. "Mara," he asked. My name sounded careful in his mouth. "Yes. I'm sorry I'm late." "You're 7 minutes late." "I know," he said. "You notice time when you're anxious." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. He sat across from me. The window behind him reflected both of us, pale and ghosted. My face looked tired. His looked calm. Too calm. He ordered chamomile tea for himself and said, "You prefer coffee, but not after 7. My fingers tightened around my cup. "How would you know that?" He blinked then. "Once." Slowly. "You mentioned insomnia," he said. "Caffeine makes it worse." I had mentioned insomnia. Maybe. I had told him I didn't sleep much. People could infer things. Smart people. Sensitive people. Maybe I was overthinking. Outside, rain tapped the glass. A siren passed somewhere far off, softened by fog. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm just tired." "No," he said gently. "Tired is different. This is guarded." The word slipped under my skin. Guarded. Ellis used to say that when I didn't answer fast enough. Adrian watched my reaction. Noticed it. Stored it. Then lowered his voice. "I'm sorry. That sounded too familiar, didn't it?" I looked up. He didn't smile. That made him feel safer. "A little," I admitted. "I'll be more careful." It was exactly what I needed to hear. That was the first thing that frightened me later. How precise he was. We talked for an hour. He asked about books, weather, my job at the archive, the city after midnight. He listened without interrupting. He didn't perform interest. He seemed to sit inside it. Every few minutes, I noticed something strange. His stillness. Most people fidget, touch their phones, adjust sleeves, look away. Adrian barely moved, and he almost never blinked. When he did, it seemed deliberate, as if he had remembered the body required it. "You're studying me," I said. He looked down at his tea. "Is that bad?" "It depends why. I like understanding people." "That's not an answer." "No," he said, "but it's honest." The phone on the table buzzed. A message from my sister. Checking in. "Text me the code word if he's weird. Asterisk asterisk." Adrian glanced at the screen. Not long. Just enough. "Daffodil," he said. I stopped breathing. "What?" "Your safety word," he said softly. "That's sweet." My stomach went cold. "How did you know that?" His face changed. A small crease between his brows. Concern, perfectly placed. "You told me." "No, I didn't." "Mara." His voice was calm. "You did. On the app. You said your sister made you choose something ridiculous." I opened the chat. Scrolled. Nothing. No mention of Daffodil. Adrian watched me. The cafe hummed around us. Cups clinked. Milk steamed. Jazz brushed the ceiling. Rain tapped and tapped. "Messages disappear sometimes," he said. "Apps glitch." I wanted to believe it. I wanted this not to be happening. So I nodded, and he smiled barely. When I got home, the apartment felt larger than usual. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. The old pipes clicked behind the bathroom wall. My shoes left damp marks on the floorboards. My phone buzzed. Adrian *, you got home safely. Not a question. A statement. I typed, how do you know? 3 dots appeared. You always turn your hallway light on first. I saw it from the street. ***. I walked to the window. The street below was wet and empty. Neon smeared across parked cars. A man with an umbrella moved past the corner and vanished into fog. My phone buzzed again. That sounded worse than I meant. I waited nearby because I worried. You seemed shaken, ***. I should have blocked him. Instead, I stared at those words until they rearranged themselves into care. A week passed. Adrian apologized. Then apologized again better. He said he understood surveillance as a wound. He said he should have asked. He sent articles about trauma recovery, short voice notes about breathing through panic, songs without lyrics because he remembered words overwhelmed me at night. I had never told him that. I told myself maybe I had. The mind leaks. People forget what they reveal. Then came the song. It was 2:16 a.m. rain hitting the bedroom window. Soft jazz from the apartment upstairs. My laptop asleep on the desk, tiny light pulsing like a slow heartbeat. I was crying quietly, which was how I cried after Ellis. No drama, no sound, just water leaving the body because it had nowhere else to go. My phone buzzed. A voice note from Adrian. I played it. His voice entered the dark. Don't play that song tonight, Mara. I froze. Behind his voice, faintly, was the melody. The song I played when I cried. An old piano track my father used to play in the car after my mother left. I never posted it, never mentioned it. It wasn't even saved under its real name in my phone. Adrian continued. It keeps you inside the hurt. I threw the phone onto the bed. The apartment went silent except for the refrigerator hum and my own breathing. Then another buzz. I know that scared you, but being known can feel like danger when you've survived the wrong kind of attention. ***. I read it twice. It was manipulative. It was also accurate. That was the trap. The next morning, I searched him properly. The Adrian from the profile existed. Adrian Vale. Photographer. River photo. Gray coat. Same face. But his social media had been inactive for 8 months. His last public post was a warning. Someone is using my pictures. Please report fake accounts. ***. My hands went numb. I messaged the real Adrian through his website. 20 minutes later, he replied, That is not me. Do not meet him again. Send me screenshots. Contact police. ***. A second email came immediately after. From an unknown address. Subject, you disappoint me when you ask strangers for truth. No body. Just an attachment. A voice note. My own voice played through my laptop speakers. Daffodil. I remembered saying it to my sister months ago in my kitchen, laughing because it sounded stupid. My phone had been on the counter. Smart speaker nearby. Window open. The recording was clear. Too clear. I called my sister. Then the police. The first officer was polite in the way people are polite when they don't believe you yet. I showed him the messages, the fake profile, the voice note, the email headers. He took notes. Used words like document and pattern. Adrian kept texting. You're making this uglier than it needs to be. Then, I never hurt you. I only listened, ***. Then, Ellis never listened. That's why you confused control with love. ***. That one made me sit down. Because Ellis had said those words once. Not online. Not in text. In our bedroom. During one of those quiet arguments that left me shaking and him calm. My laptop had been open on the dresser. Camera facing the room. I thought of all the permissions I had clicked through. All the passwords reused. All the cloud backups. All the convenience I had mistaken for privacy. The detective assigned to the case was named Rena Hale. She had tired eyes and a voice that did not rush. He's not guessing, she said. He's aggregating. What does that mean? It means he has pieces. Dating app data, old breaches, social media, metadata, possibly access to one of your accounts, maybe devices. He's building intimacy from stolen fragments. Intimacy from stolen fragments. That phrase stayed with me. They traced the burner numbers, the email service, a payment trail. The dating profile had been made with stolen photos and a rotating VPN, but not perfectly. Men like him, Detective Hale said, became arrogant when they felt invisible. His real name was Silas Morrow, former cybersecurity contractor, former moderator on trauma forums, linked to 3 harassment complaints in 2 states. No convictions, always careful, always charming, always becoming exactly what someone needed. He tests personas, Hale said. Protective, intellectual, wounded, patient. He watches what lowers your defenses. I thought of Adrian's profile. Healing isn't linear. Rain, books, gentleness. A man designed for the wound I showed the world. The confrontation happened 2 nights later. Hale asked me to respond while officers monitored the exchange. My hands shook so badly I could barely type. I want to talk. His reply came instantly. I know. Cafe. Our table. Asterisk asterisk. Our table. As if fear created ownership. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived with a wire under my sweater and police nearby. Rain washed the windows. Neon trembled in the glass. The espresso machine hissed. Soft jazz played overhead. Silas came in wearing Adrian's gray coat. Same face from the stolen photos, but not exactly. Similar build. Similar hair. Enough in low light. Enough if you wanted the match to be real. He sat across from me. Still. Unblinking. You look relieved, he said. I'm not. You are. A little. Seeing me makes the fear smaller, because now it has a body. I swallowed. Why me? He tilted his head. Because you were honest in the places you thought no one important was watching. That's not honesty. That's theft. No, he said softly. Theft is taking what isn't offered. You offered everything. Public grief. Public insomnia. Public loneliness. My private accounts? You made them private after people had already copied them. My voice. Technology remembers better than people. His calmness was the worst part. No rage. No shame. Only analysis. You don't love people, I said. He blinked once. I understand them. No. You study pain until you can imitate care. For the first time, his expression shifted. Small. Almost sadness. You like being understood. I did not answer. Because he was right. And because being right did not make him innocent. Detective Hale moved in when he reached into his coat. Not for a weapon. For a phone. Still, the officers were fast. Chairs scraped. Someone gasped. Rain kept tapping the windows like nothing important had happened. As they cuffed him, Silas looked at me. You'll miss the attention, he said. Quiet. Surgical. The sentence found the part of me he had mapped. I hated him for knowing where to cut. They found drives in his apartment. Folders. Names. Mine. Others. Screenshots. Login dumps. Audio clips. Psychological notes. Fake profiles. Response charts. He had labeled me. Mara K. Trust pathway. Calm male authority. Trigger. Being believed without pressure. Resistance phrase. Maybe I'm overthinking. I read that line in the police station beneath fluorescent lights while coffee burned in a machine nearby. It felt like seeing my soul described as a lock. Months have passed. I live in a different apartment now. Higher floor. New passwords. Fewer devices. No smart speaker. Tape over the laptop camera. Rain still changes the room. My phone buzzes and my body goes still before my mind can stop it. A man in a cafe lowers his voice, and I listen for performance. Someone remembers a small detail, and I wonder where they found it. I am better. I am not the same. Those are different things. Sometimes I think about the original Adrian, whose face became a doorway for someone else's obsession. Sometimes I think about Ellis, and how control prepared me to mistake surveillance for care. Mostly, I think about myself at that first window table, lonely enough to confuse precision with tenderness. Trust is not the feeling of being instantly known. That can be manufactured. Privacy is not hiding. It is breathing room. A boundary is not a wall against love. It is the shape love must respect to be real. The most dangerous people do not always force their way inside. Sometimes they arrive softly. They learn your insomnia, your old nickname, the song you play when you cry. Then they sit across from you in a warm cafe on a rainy night, never blinking, and call it understanding. Story 8. Rain made the city look edited. Every streetlight blurred into a neon wound. Red signs, blue windows, yellow taxi roofs sliding through puddles like memories trying to leave. I had moved into the apartment 3 weeks after the breakup. It was supposed to be temporary. A mattress on the floor, 2 mugs, 1 chair, a refrigerator that hummed too loudly at night, pipes knocking behind the walls, music bleeding softly through the neighbor's apartment every evening around 11. Jazz usually. Slow trumpet, sad enough to feel personal. I told myself I was rebuilding. Mostly I was disappearing. That was when I matched with Mara. Her profile was simple. No bikini photos. No clever bio. Just one picture in a gray coat outside a cafe window, rain behind her, her face turned slightly away from the camera. Her first message was, "You look like someone who apologizes before asking for anything." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, "That obvious?" She replied immediately, "Pain makes people polite." I should have deleted the app. Instead, I smiled. I wanted to believe it. For 3 nights, Mara became the softest part of my life. She messaged late, when the apartment was quiet and the city became glass. My phone buzzed against my chest while rain tapped the window. She asked careful questions. Not invasive at first, just close. What song did I listen to when I couldn't sleep? Why did I move across town? Did I always drink burnt coffee from the same corner cafe? I told myself it made sense. Everyone had patterns. Everyone left pieces of themselves online. But Mara knew things I hadn't posted. She knew my old nickname, Eli. Only my mother called me that when I was little. When I asked how she knew, she sent a voice note. Her voice was calm, warm, almost amused. "Lucky guess," she said. "You feel like an Eli." There was soft static behind her. Rain. A distant siren. Then something else. Jazz. The same slow trumpet that came through my wall every night. I sat up in bed. The refrigerator hummed. My phone screen lit my hands pale blue. Maybe she liked the same music. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. On the 4th night, she asked if we could meet. Not at a bar. Not at a restaurant. A parking lot behind a closed shopping center near the river. I stared at the location pin. "That's kind of random," I wrote. She replied, "I'm sorry. I know. I just don't feel safe tonight. Asterisk asterisk. Then, can you come? Just for 10 minutes? Asterisk asterisk." I didn't answer right away. That was the kind of message people use to pull you into trouble. I knew that. I had read stories. I had warned friends. But guilt is not logical. Loneliness is worse. My phone buzzed again. "Please, Eli." I drove. The city thinned into warehouses and dark glass offices. Fog moved low across the road. Rain clicked against the windshield in nervous rhythms. I passed a 24-hour diner glowing pink in the dark, a gas station with one flickering light, a bus stop where a man stood motionless beneath an umbrella. The parking lot was empty when I arrived. No Mara, no gray coat, only rain, asphalt, and the buzz of a broken security light. Then I heard the phone, a ringtone, soft, repeating, coming from somewhere near the shopping carts. I walked toward it slowly, my shoes splashing through shallow puddles. The sound echoed against the closed storefronts. Behind me, my car idled. Warm air, headlights, a small island of safety. The phone lay face up beside a concrete pillar. Mara's name glowed across the screen. Incoming call. From me. I stopped breathing. My own number was calling her phone. But my phone was in my hand. It buzzed. One notification. Tinder. Your profile location has been updated. I opened it. My photo stared back at me. My bio had changed. Not much. Just one line added beneath my name. Last seen, Rivergate Lot B. The same lot. The same minute. The ringtone stopped. Somewhere behind the building, metal scraped concrete. I ran. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't get the key into the ignition. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mara. You came faster than the others. I locked the doors. Rain slid down the windshield. The shopping center reflected back at me in broken strips of white and gray. Empty windows. Black entrances. My own face distorted in glass. Then another voice note arrived. I shouldn't have played it, but fear makes you obedient. Mara's voice filled the car, soft as breath. Do you remember Clara Bennett? My stomach tightened. I knew the name. Not well. Not enough. 3 years ago, Clara had been a woman from an app. We talked for 2 nights. She sent too many messages. Too much fear. She said someone was following her. She sent a location. I had been with my ex then. Exhausted. Irritated. Trying to be a better man and failing quietly. I told Clara to call the police. Lenny on Metzit's hit. She disappeared the same night. The case was on local news for maybe a week. Then the world moved on. I moved on. Or I told myself I did. The voice note continued. You saw the red flags. You just didn't want them to become your problem. I dropped the phone onto the passenger seat like it had burned me. A shape moved near the edge of the lot. A person under a black umbrella. Still. Watching. My phone buzzed again. A photo appeared. Me in my apartment. Taken through my window. 3 nights earlier. Then another. Me at the cafe stirring coffee. Another. Me carrying groceries, rain on my shoulders. Another. My dating profile dashboard. My deleted messages. My archived social media posts. Metadata. Timestamps. Private routines turned into evidence. I drove straight to the police station. The officer at the front desk listened with the expression people use when they are deciding whether you are afraid or unstable. I showed the phone, the photos, the location changes, the voice notes. When I said Clara Bennett's name, his face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. He asked me to sit. The room smelled like wet coats and vending machine coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed above me. Somewhere down the hall, a printer coughed paper. My phone sat in a plastic evidence bag, still glowing faintly. A detective named Ramos came in 20 minutes later. She was calm, sharp-eyed, tired in a way that made her more credible. Tell me everything from the first message, she said. So I did. I told her about Mara, about the parking lot, about my profile, about Clara. Ramos didn't interrupt. When I finished, she opened a folder. Inside were photographs. Different men, different cities, different parking lots. Same line added to their profiles. Last seen. Some were alive. Some weren't missing exactly. They had fled. Broken down. Lost jobs. Lost families. A few had confessed to things they had ignored. Old reports. Old pleas. Women who had asked for help and been dismissed as dramatic, unstable, inconvenient. This isn't one person, Ramos said. My throat felt dry. What is it? A group, she said. Or something pretending to be one. They called themselves the Witness Archive. Fake profiles. Burner phones. Scraped social media. Data brokers. AI voice cloning. Old police reports. Dating app histories obtained through breaches and phishing. They reconstructed victims and staged encounters with people who had ignored them. Not justice. Punishment wearing justice's face. Mara isn't real? I asked. Ramos watched me carefully. Mara is a mask. But she was more than that. That was the part one couldn't explain to myself. Because Mara had comforted me. Listened to me. Made me feel seen. That was the cruelty. They didn't break into my life with force. They entered through the exact shape of what I needed. The next night, Ramos told me to go home and act normal. There would be units nearby. Digital forensics watching the account. A trace running through the latest message. I said yes because I wanted it to end. But when I returned to my apartment, silence felt staged. The hallway smelled of old rain and bleach. A bulb flickered near the elevator. Somewhere above me, footsteps moved and stopped. My apartment was dark. The refrigerator hummed. Jazz drifted through the wall. My phone, now replaced with a police-monitored device, buzzed on the kitchen counter. Mara, you told them. I looked toward the window. My reflection looked older. Another message. Good. Witnesses should learn what being watched feels like. Asterisk, asterisk. Then a voice note. This time it was not Mara. It was my own voice. Perfectly copied. Please, it said. I don't feel safe tonight. The same words Clara had sent me. I gripped the counter until my knuckles hurt. The apartment door clicked. Not opened. Just touched. The smallest sound. A key testing the lock. I backed away. The floor creaked in the hallway. One step. Then another. Soft. Deliberate. My phone buzzed. Open the door, Eli. We only want to talk. Asterisk, asterisk. Police sirens were supposed to be loud. In movies, they arrive like thunder. In real life, the first sign was a reflection. Red and blue sliding silently across the rain-streaked window. Then shouting in the hallway. A body hit the wall. A woman's voice said, calm and cold, don't move. I stood frozen in my kitchen, breathing too fast, while officers pulled two people from the hallway. One of them was my neighbor, the man who played jazz through the wall. The other was a woman I recognized from nowhere and everywhere. Gray coat, Mara's profile picture, but older, tired, real. Her name was Elise Bennett, Clara's sister. She looked at me as police held her wrists behind her back. No rage, no panic, only disappointment. You were easier than I thought, she said. I couldn't speak. She smiled faintly. You wanted to be forgiven before you admitted what you did. Ramos stepped between us, but Elise kept looking at me. You all do. The investigation lasted months. There were servers in rented offices, fake charities for missing women, encrypted chat logs, voice models built from old videos, maps of routines, profiles marked with categories: dismissive, cruel, negligent, useful. My name had been highlighted in yellow. Not the worst, not innocent, just available. That word stayed with me. Available. As if guilt were a door, as if loneliness were a spare key. Elise took a plea. Others were arrested. More names came out. More cases reopened. The news called it a digital revenge network. I stopped watching after the first week. People wanted clean sides, victims and villains, justice and obsession. But what happened to me lived somewhere darker. Clara had been real. Her fear had been real. And I had ignored it. Elise had been real too. So had her grief. But grief, when fed long enough, can learn to imitate morality. It can build systems. By data. Clone voices. Wear a stranger's face. It can call itself justice while becoming another kind of predator. I still live in the same apartment. Not because I am brave. Because moving didn't save me the first time. Rain still taps against the window. Neon still breaks across the glass. The refrigerator still hums at night. Sometimes jazz drifts from another unit, and my body tightens before my mind can explain why. I deleted every dating app. Then I deleted the backups. Then I learned that privacy is not deletion. Privacy is boundaries. And boundaries are not just what we protect from strangers. They are what we refuse to surrender when we are lonely. Sometimes I think about Clara. Sometimes I think about Mara. The woman who never existed, who knew exactly how to comfort me. That is what frightens me most. Not the parking lot. Not the phone ringing in the rain. Not even my own profile turning into a warning. What frightens me is how easily I trusted a voice that understood my wounds. How quickly being seen became more important than being safe. Because obsession does not always arrive like danger. Sometimes it arrives gently, with perfect timing, with your favorite song, with your old nickname, with a message that makes you feel less alone. And by the time you realize someone has learned the shape of your emptiness, they are already inside it. Story 9. The first thing I noticed was the rain. Not the woman. Not the match. Not even the address. The rain. It came down in thin silver lines, cutting through the neon above the cafe windows and turning the street into a long, trembling mirror. Red signs bled into blue puddles. Headlights stretched across the asphalt like open wounds. Somewhere behind me, a bus hissed at the curb, its doors breathing open, then shut. I stood under the awning of a closed pharmacy with my phone in my hand and watched her last message glow on the screen. Apartment 6B. Come up when you get here. I'm cooking, ***. Her name was Elise. At least, that was the name on Tinder. Her profile had been quiet. Not empty, exactly. Just restrained. 3 photographs. One of her in a black coat beside a bookstore window. One of a coffee cup on a balcony. One blurred picture of her face reflected in glass. No bikini. No party shots. No bio full of jokes pretending not to be lonely. Just one sentence. I like people who notice small things. I had noticed it because I was trying to become that kind of person again. Someone who noticed. Someone who wanted. Someone who answered messages. After Mira left, my apartment became a museum of sounds. The refrigerator clicking on at 2:13 a.m. The pipes knocking in the walls. My own footsteps moving from bed to kitchen to bathroom to bed again. I had moved to the city after the divorce because everyone said a new place would help. It didn't. Cities are not cures. They are just louder ways to be alone. Elise had messaged me first. You look like you don't sleep well. You almost met it here. Then I didn't. Because she was right. We talked for 9 days. Never too much. Never too fast. She asked careful questions. Not the usual kind. Not what do you do, what are you looking for, what's your favorite movie. She asked, do you keep the window open when it rains? I said yes. She asked, do you still buy 2 coffees sometimes by accident? I stared at that one for a long time. Then I typed, not anymore. She replied, good. That means you're returning to yourself. ***. I wanted to believe it. That was the first mistake. The building was on Vesper Street, wedged between a shuttered laundromat and an old music store with yellowed posters curling in the window. The entrance light flickered weakly above the door. Half the apartments looked dark. One window on the 4th floor glowed blue with television light. Distant jazz leaked from somewhere high above, soft and scratched, like an old record turning in another life. The front door was unlocked. I told myself it made sense. Some older buildings were like that. Bad security, lazy tenants, a broken latch. Inside, the lobby smelled of wet concrete, dust, and something sweetly stale. The elevator was out of service. A paper sign had been taped across the doors, the ink bleeding from damp air. So I took the stairs. Each step echoed too clearly. My shoes squeaked against the tile. Rainwater dripped from my coat. Somewhere in the walls, a pipe hummed. On the 3rd floor, I heard a door close softly, but when I turned, the hallway behind me was empty. My phone buzzed. Elise ***, don't be nervous. I stopped on the landing. I had not told her I was nervous. For a moment, I just stood there, watching the message dim. Maybe she guessed. Maybe everybody was nervous before a first date. Maybe I was overthinking. I climbed higher. Apartment 6B was at the end of a narrow hallway with old carpet the color of cigarette ash. One bulb flickered above the door. The number 6B was brass, scratched, slightly crooked. I knocked. No answer. I waited. Rain tapped the hallway windows. The jazz music grew faint, then faded altogether. Behind one of the apartment doors, an appliance hummed in a steady electric throat. I knocked again. The door opened by itself. Not dramatically, just a little, as if the latch had never caught. Elise. My voice sounded wrong in the hallway. Too intimate, too exposed. I stepped inside. The apartment was warm. That was the second thing I noticed. Warm and dim and smelling faintly of rosemary, melted wax, and wine. The living room opened into a small dining area. 2 candles burned on the table. 2 plates were set across from each other. Cloth napkins, silverware aligned with careful precision. A bottle of red wine breathed beside 2 glasses. No food, no music, no woman, just the rain at the windows and the quiet blue pulse of the city outside. Elise? Nothing. I closed the door behind me because leaving it open felt impolite. Another mistake. My phone vibrated in my palm. Not a message, a notification. Connected to Wi-Fi, Daniel's apartment. I stared at it. My name was Daniel. I had never been in this apartment in my life. At least, that was what my mind gave me first. A clean answer. A defensive answer. Then something moved underneath it. Not a memory. Not exactly. More like the shape of one. A smell. Rosemary. Wax. Rain on wool. A woman laughing softly behind me. My hand tightened around the phone. The Wi-Fi name disappeared as the lock screen faded. I woke the screen again, but now it only showed the time. 9:17 p.m. The candles trembled. I walked slowly through the apartment. There were no photographs on the walls. No books on the shelves. No shoes by the door. Nothing that proved a person lived there. The kitchen counter was spotless except for a single cutting board and a knife placed perfectly beside it, clean and unused. The refrigerator hummed. The window glass reflected me in pieces. A thin man in a dark coat. Tired eyes. A face still arranged around someone else's absence. On the dining table, beside my plate, was a folded card. My name was written on it. Not Daniel. Danny. Only Mira had called me that. I stopped breathing for a second. Not because of fear. Because of recognition. That small, old nickname reached into me with cold fingers. I opened the card. Inside were 3 words. You remembered enough. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice note from Elise. 10 seconds. I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then breathing. Close to the microphone. Then my own voice said, I don't want to come back here. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. It was my voice. Not close. Not similar. Mine. The cadence. The tiredness. The little break on the word want. Then another voice, a woman's, soft and calm. You already did, Danny. The voice note ended. I stood in the empty apartment, listening to the rain. My mind began to do what wounded minds do. It negotiated. Maybe it was edited. AI voice cloning was everywhere now. People made fake celebrity songs in bedrooms. Scammers called parents with their children's voices. Anyone could steal a few clips from social media, feed them into software, and make a ghost speak. I had videos online. Old ones. Wedding clips Mira never deleted. Work presentations. Voice messages. Yes, that made sense. It had to make sense. Then I saw the hallway mirror. A strip of paper had been tucked into the frame. A receipt. From a cafe near my apartment. 2 black coffees. Dated 6 weeks earlier. I remembered that morning. Or I thought I did. I remembered buying 1 coffee, sitting by the window, watching rain slide down the glass while an old song played through the ceiling speakers. But the receipt said 2. The customer name printed at the bottom said, Danny. My mouth went dry. A sound came from the bedroom. A floorboard. Soft. Careful. Not loud enough to be a mistake. I turned. The bedroom door was half open. The dark beyond it seemed thick and waiting. Elise. A phone buzzed somewhere inside the room. Not mine. Another buzz followed. Then another. A small chorus of hidden insects. I should have left. That is the sentence every survivor says later. I should have left. But fear is not always a door slamming open. Sometimes fear is a hand on your shoulder, holding you in place. Sometimes you stay because you need the impossible thing to become ordinary before you can move. I crossed the room. The bedroom was empty. No bed frame. Just a mattress on the floor. A lamp without a shade. A laptop open on a folding chair. The screen was black. Beside it were 3 phones. Burner phones. Cheap. Identical. Their screens lit up with notification previews. One showed my Tinder profile. One showed my Instagram. One showed an email draft addressed to me. Subject line, You asked me to help you forget. My knees weakened. I touched the laptop trackpad. The screen woke. Folders covered the desktop. Names. Not just mine. Daniel Mercer. Aaron Lee. Samir Voss. Thomas Hale. Each folder had dates beside it. Months. Years. I clicked mine. Inside were photographs of me. Leaving work. Standing outside the pharmacy. Sitting alone in the corner of the cafe. Sleeping on a train with my head against the window. There were screenshots of my posts, my calendar, my deleted dating profiles. Maps with pins marking my apartment, office, gym, grocery store. Audio files labeled Mira argument kitchen, Danny crying bathroom, therapy hallway, consent night 3. The last label made the room tilt. Consent for what? I clicked it. My own voice filled the bedroom. I just don't want to feel like this anymore. Then Elise's voice. Only it wasn't Elise. It was familiar now. Older. Smoother. A voice from a part of my life I had sealed away because it embarrassed me. Dr. Lena Vale. My grief counselor. I had seen her after the divorce for 4 months. She had warm lamps in her office. Chamomile tea. A machine that played rain sounds behind the couch. She wore gray sweaters and listened as if every silence I gave her was valuable. She had told me memory was not a recording. She had told me trauma could be reorganized. She had told me trust was an act of survival. The audio continued. You asked for relief, she said. I asked for help. I heard myself answer. And I helped you. No, I don't remember agreeing to this. Her voice softened. That's because the process worked. I stepped back from the laptop. The apartment seemed to inhale around me. The candles, the rosemary, the rain, the jazz. Not decoration. Triggers. A set. A room built to wake what she had buried. My phone rang. Unknown number. I knew before answering. Still I answered. Daniel, she said. Not Elise now. Lena. The same calm voice. The same careful warmth. You found the wrong folder first. I couldn't speak. Outside, a siren passed somewhere below, rising and fading into wet distance. You were supposed to sit down, she said. Eat. Let the room do the work gently. Where are you? Close enough. I turned toward the windows. Dark glass reflected the room back at me. My own face. The candles behind me. The open bedroom door. No one else. You made Elise, I said. I made a doorway. You stalked me. I monitored you. You drugged me. A pause. Not guilt. Calculation. You were dissociating. Unstable. You begged me to make the pain stop. I came to you for therapy. You came to me because your wife dismantled your sense of self piece by piece, and when she left, there was nothing holding you together. Her words landed too accurately. That was her gift. She never had to raise her voice. She could cut quietly. You don't get to use that, I said. I'm the only person who understood it. My phone buzzed with a new message while she remained on the call. A photo. Me standing in the living room. Taken from inside the apartment. From behind me. My blood went cold. I turned slowly. The closet door near the entrance was open an inch. The apartment went silent except for the rain and my breathing. Lena, I whispered. You always notice too late, she said. The closet door moved. Not much. Just enough. I ran. Not toward the front door. Toward the kitchen. My hand found the wine bottle. I threw it at the floor between us as the closet opened wider. Glass exploded. Red wine spread across the wood like dark water. A woman stepped out. Not Elise. Dr. Lena Vale, hair tied back, face pale in candlelight, wearing a dark raincoat. She looked almost disappointed. Daniel. I grabbed the nearest chair and held it between us, ridiculous and shaking. She did not rush me. That was worse. I can explain this in a way you'll understand, she said. You don't explain this. You fragmented after Mira. You were suggestible. You were asking the same questions every session. Who am I without her? Why can't I trust my own feelings? Why do I keep going back to people who hurt me? Stop. So I created a controlled environment. You erased me. I removed pain loops. You erased me. The words came out louder than I intended. From somewhere above us, a neighbor's floor creaked. Lena glanced up. That tiny movement saved me. I shoved the chair into her path and ran for the door. She caught my sleeve. Not hard, just enough to turn my body. For a second her face was close to mine, and I saw something naked beneath the calm. Not love, not even hatred. Ownership. You were better with me, she whispered. I ripped free and stumbled into the hallway. The door banged behind me. The lights flickered. I ran down 6 flights with wet shoes slipping on tile, phone clutched in my hand, Lena's footsteps behind me for the first 2 floors, then stopping. That frightened me more than pursuit. Outside, the rain hit me like cold needles. I didn't stop until I reached the cafe on the corner, the one with blue neon and 3 people inside pretending not to watch the street. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial. The police came in 20 minutes. 20 minutes is a long time when every reflection looks like a person behind you. I gave them the address, the laptop, the phones, the names I remembered from the folders. At first, they listened with the cautious expressions people use when fear sounds too elaborate. Then an officer went pale while scrolling through the laptop. They found recordings, prescriptions written under false consulting names, profiles built from stolen photos, voice models trained on private therapy sessions, a network of fake accounts designed to appear at the exact moment a person became lonely enough to answer. I was not her first. That fact should have comforted me. It didn't. It only made the room larger. Lena was arrested 2 days later at a short-term rental under another name. She had 3 phones on her, 2 passports, and a notebook filled with phrases taken from patient sessions. Beside my name, she had written, "Responds to gentleness after prolonged neglect. Needs permission to trust. Memory gap successful but unstable. Reentry through sensory cues. Asterisk asterisk." The detective showed me only part of it. I asked him not to read more. Afterward, people told me I was lucky. They always say that when they cannot bear the shape of what happened. Lucky because I survived. Lucky because I ran. Lucky because there was evidence. But luck is a strange word for learning your own memories have doors in them. For discovering that someone walked through your loneliness wearing a kind face and called it care. Now I keep my Wi-Fi off in public. I cover my webcam. I read every app permission. I do not answer unknown numbers. When it rains, I close the window. Sometimes late at night, my phone buzzes and my body remembers before my mind does. The room narrows. The refrigerator hums. A car passes outside, dragging light across the ceiling. And for one terrible second, I am back in 6B. Candles burning. Table set. No one there, except the version of me someone tried to keep. I used to think trust was opening a door. Now I think trust is knowing who built the room on the other side. Because privacy is not just what we hide. It is where the self goes to rest. And when someone learns the map of that place, when they memorize your silences, your wounds, your passwords, your grief, they do not need a weapon to enter you. They only need to sound safe. Story 10. Hashtag the match next door. I downloaded the app again on a night when the rain made the city look kinder than it was. That was how it started. Not with danger. Not with a shadow in a hallway. Just rain on glass. A half-empty apartment. A phone glowing in my hand like a small, patient wound. I had been single for 4 months. Single was the polite word. The real word was emptied. After Marcus left, I stopped sleeping on my side of the bed because every side felt like his side. I moved into a narrow apartment on the 9th floor of a building that smelled of old carpet, detergent, and boiled coffee. Across the street stood another building, taller than mine, its windows stacked like dark teeth. At night, I could see people living inside them. A man eating soup alone. A girl dancing with headphones on. A couple arguing silently behind curtains. And sometimes, when the fog pressed low against the windows, all I saw was my own reflection. Thin face. Tired eyes. A woman trying to become a person again. My sister said I needed to meet someone safe. Not exciting. Not intense. Safe. So I made a profile. 3 photos. One from a cafe. One with my hair tied back. One where I looked happier than I felt. My bio said, rebuilding. Slowly, asterisk asterisk. Most men ignored that. One didn't. His name was Adrian. His first message came at 12:17 a.m., while rain tapped softly against my window and the refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. Slowly as still movement. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, that sounds like something a therapist would say. A minute later, or someone who has had to start over too. I wanted to believe it. That was the first mistake. Adrian was easy to talk to. Not charming in the obvious way. He didn't flood me with compliments or ask for selfies or make jokes that required me to pretend to laugh. He listened, or he seemed to. He liked old jazz, black coffee with one sugar, late walks after rain, movies where nothing really happened, but everyone looked haunted. The same things I liked. Too many of the same things. At first, it felt like relief. After months of being misunderstood by someone who once knew everything about me, matching with a stranger who understood small details felt almost holy. He asked what song made me feel less alone. I said Blue and Green. He said he listened to it whenever the city felt too large. I sent him a photo of my coffee from Luma Cafe. He replied, table by the window. Best one, asterisk asterisk. I smiled. Because it was. Because I always sat there. Because I wanted the coincidence to feel romantic. Maybe he had been there before. Maybe everybody knew that table. Maybe I was overthinking. The next morning, as I left for work, the security guard in my building looked up from the front desk. Morning, Claire. His name was Evan. I knew because his name tag said so. He was in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. Calm face, careful beard, soft voice. The kind of man who never seemed surprised by anything. Morning, I said. He glanced at the umbrella in my hand. Rain again tonight. I looked toward the glass doors. The sky was pale and dry. Really? Probably, he said. You always carry it anyway. I gave a small laugh. It felt harmless. People notice routines in apartment buildings. That's what buildings are. Shared habits. Repeated footsteps. Elevators opening at the same hour every morning. I told myself it made sense. That night Adrian sent me a voice note. I played it while standing barefoot in my kitchen, the city flickering blue beyond the window. His voice was low, warm, almost familiar. I don't think loneliness is the absence of people, he said. I think it's being surrounded by people who don't know how to find you. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. Marcus had always said I was too much, too sensitive, too hard to reassure, too hungry for attention. Adrian made hunger sound human. For 2 weeks, he became the softest part of my day. Morning messages, small questions, no pressure. He remembered everything. That I hated cinnamon, that I watered my plant on Sundays, that I took the stairs when the elevator smelled like smoke, that I used to be called Cece as a child. When he wrote that name, I stopped. Cece. The phone felt cold in my hand. Nobody called me that anymore. Not Marcus. Not my sister. Not even my mother, who had invented it. I typed. How did you know that? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. You told me. One night. About your grandmother's kitchen. You said she'd call you Cece when you stole peaches from the bowl. Asterisk asterisk. I read it twice. I did remember telling someone that story. But not Adrian. Had I? Maybe I had sent it half asleep. Maybe it was buried somewhere in the chat. Maybe trauma made memory unreliable. Marcus used to say that. You forget what you say. You exaggerate. You make things strange. So I scrolled up. The story wasn't there. My apartment went very quiet. Only the refrigerator humming. A car passing below. Rain beginning again, soft as fingertips on the glass. I didn't reply for 9 minutes. Adrian finally wrote, I'm sorry. Did I overstep? Asterisk asterisk. That undid me. Not the nickname. Not the impossible detail. The apology. So careful. So precise. I wanted to believe it. I told him it was okay. The first photo that bothered me came on a Friday. He sent it after midnight. No caption. Just an image of rain sliding down a window, neon reflected in red and violet streaks. Beautiful. Lonely. Then I looked closer. Across the street, blurred by rain, was my building. I could see the entrance canopy, the revolving door, the weak yellow light above the lobby. For a moment, my body understood before my mind did. I sat up in bed. My own window was dark. Behind me, the radiator clicked. Somewhere upstairs, footsteps crossed a floor and stopped. I messaged, "Is that my building?" He answered too quickly. "I told you. I live nearby, asterisk asterisk." "How nearby?" "Across from you, actually." "Strange, right? Asterisk asterisk." My mouth dried. Strange. That word people use when they don't want to say impossible. I went to my window and looked out. Across the street, hundreds of windows glowed. Some warm, some blue, some dark enough to hide anything. Which one was his? He sent another message. "Don't look so worried." I stepped back from the glass. My phone buzzed again. "I can't see you." "Bad joke." "Sorry, asterisk asterisk." I stood in the dark, holding the phone. Rain tapped the window. A siren moved through the distance. I closed my curtains for the first time since I moved in. The next day I searched him. Adrian Vale. No LinkedIn. No Facebook. His Instagram had 6 posts, all atmospheric. Coffee, books, rain, one black and white picture of his jawline and coat collar. No tagged friends. No old comments. Nothing before 3 months ago. A person built recently. That was the phrase that came to me. Built. I checked the photo he had sent. There was metadata attached. I didn't know much about images, but Marcus had been a photographer, and I remembered enough to download an app. The location data was stripped, but the device name remained. Front desk cam 03. I read it again. Front desk cam. My skin tightened. Downstairs, in the lobby, Evan sat behind a desk under 3 security monitors. I had never paid attention to them before. That afternoon, I walked past him slowly, pretending to check my mail. The monitors showed the lobby, the elevator, the garage, the front doors, and the street. One camera angled outward, toward the building across from mine, toward the windows, toward me. Evan looked up. "Everything okay, Claire?" His voice was gentle. Too gentle. I nodded. "Just tired. You haven't been sleeping much." The mail key slipped in my hand. He smiled faintly, as if embarrassed by his own observation. "Lights are on late. I do night shifts sometimes." I forced myself to smile back. Bad habit. We all have those. Behind him, one of the monitors flickered. For a second, I saw myself, standing at the mailboxes. Small. Framed. Watched. That night, Adrian sent me a playlist. The first song was Blue and Green. The second was a song Marcus used to play when he wanted me to forgive him. I had never told Adrian about that song. Not the title, not the memory, not how it made my stomach fold in on itself. I wrote, "Where did you get this?" He replied, "You left it playing once. Through the wall, maybe. Sound travels, asterisk asterisk." I lived alone. My nearest neighbor was an old woman who watched cooking shows too loudly. I put the phone face down. It buzzed anyway. Again. 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 Each vibration sounded like a finger tapping from inside the table. Finally, I picked it up. A voice note. I should not have played it, but fear has curiosity inside it. Adrian's voice filled the room. "Claire," he said softly, "you keep mistaking attention for danger because the wrong people paid attention to hurt you." I froze. The sentence was too accurate, too intimate. Then his tone changed slightly. Still warm, still controlled, but being known isn't the same as being harmed. I stopped the recording. My apartment was silent except for my breathing. Then through the wall, from somewhere distant in the building, I heard soft jazz. Not loud, barely there, Blue and Green. I called my sister. She told me to document everything. Screenshots, dates, times, usernames, the metadata, the voice notes. "Go to management," she said. So I did. The next morning, I asked the building manager to review camera access logs. He frowned. Has Evan done something? The way he said it told me Evan was trusted. Reliable Evan. Quiet Evan. Helpful Evan who signed for packages and walked elderly tenants to taxis. I don't know, I said. That was the worst part. I didn't know enough. Only my body knew. The manager promised to check. 2 hours later, Adrian messaged. You shouldn't make people choose between believing you and protecting someone they like. It isolates you, asterisk asterisk. My vision blurred. He knew. He knew where I had gone. He knew what I had said. Or enough of it. I packed a bag before sunset. Just clothes, passport, laptop, the small jewelry box my grandmother left me. My hands moved fast. Too fast. The apartment seemed to watch me pack. Every corner had become suspicious. Smoke detector, lamp, vent, router. I found the device behind the bookshelf. A small black square stuck under the lowest shelf, warm to the touch. A camera, tiny, pointed toward the living room. For a second, I made no sound. Then everything inside me went cold and clean. Not panic. Decision. I photographed it, left it there, turned off the lights. Then I texted Adrian. You were right. I'm scared because I'm not used to being known. Asterisk asterisk. 3 dots. I know Cece. I typed. Can we meet? A pause. Longer this time. Lobby. Midnight. No police. I just want to explain. Asterisk asterisk. I sent the screenshots to my sister. Then I called the police. At 11:57 p.m., I stood inside my apartment with my shoes on and my coat zipped to my throat. Rain hit the windows in hard little bursts. Neon trembled on the ceiling. My phone buzzed. Adrian asterisk come down. I watched the message appear. Then another. Don't bring your bag. It makes you look like you're leaving. Asterisk asterisk. My bach was by my feet. Away from the windows. Away from the door. He was watching from inside. Or he had been. I looked at the bookshelf camera. Its tiny black eye stared back. Then my apartment door handle moved. Slowly. Once. Twice. The lock held. A soft knock followed. Not aggressive. Almost polite. Claire? Not Adrian's voice. Evan's. My heart became a hard, useless thing. I know you're afraid, he said through the door. But fear isn't always truth. I backed away. He spoke gently, as if we were sitting across from each other over coffee. I learned you because nobody else bothered to. That isn't cruelty. I called 911 again, whispering. The dispatcher told me officers were close. Evan sighed outside the door. I never touched you. I never forced anything. I only gave you what you kept choosing. The hallway light flickered beneath the door. A floorboard creaked. He was close enough to breathe against the wood. You made a person, I said. My voice shook. You made Adrian. No, he said. You did. I just listened. The lock clicked. Not fully. Just once. I had forgotten he had master keys. I ran to the fire escape window. Behind me, the door opened. Not wide. Enough. His reflection appeared in the dark glass. Security uniform. Damp hair. Calm face. He looked smaller outside the desk. More ordinary. That made it worse. Claire, he said. Don't turn me into a monster because you're embarrassed someone saw you. There it was. The wound inside the kindness. I opened the window. Cold rain rushed in. Sirens rose below. Evan's eyes flicked toward the sound. For the first time, his calm broke. Just a crack. You called them? Yes. He looked almost hurt. After everything, he looked hurt. The police reached the hallway before he reached me. Voices. Footsteps. Radios. A command shouted with professional sharpness. Evan raised his hands slowly. Even then, he looked at me like we shared something private, like the police were interrupting intimacy instead of ending surveillance. They found the burner phones in his locker. 3 fake dating profiles. A laptop full of footage. My lobby entries. My elevator rides. My mail. My apartment through the hidden camera. Notes about my coffee order, sleep patterns, crying episodes, calls with my sister. He had clipped my voice from hallway conversations and app videos, then used software to generate voice notes in a warmer male tone. Adrian had been a mask built from my own loneliness. He had done it before. 2 other women in the building. One had moved away after what she called a nervous breakdown. One had filed a complaint that went nowhere. Reliable Evan. Quiet Evan. Always there. Always watching. I moved out before the week ended. Now I live on the 4th floor of a smaller building with old locks and no concierge. I know that safety is never absolute. I know windows are not just windows. I know attention can wear the shape of love. Sometimes, when rain comes down and jazz leaks from a passing car, I still reach for my phone expecting his name. Not because I miss him, because part of me misses being understood that completely. That is the most frightening part. The hook, the hunger, the way loneliness can make surveillance feel like tenderness if it arrives softly enough. I used to think privacy meant secrecy. Now I know better. Privacy is the border around the self, the last locked room. An obsession is what happens when someone looks at that locked room and calls it an invitation.